Tennessee will hold its orange and white game. This is different than any orange and white game that I can remember because there will just be 10,000 people in the stands. They'll have a couple of big screens and that sort of thing. Minnesota has a far different approach. They are actually going to put their spring game behind a paywall, and they can call it something different if they want to. But this coach is very protective. So you have to pay to see a scrimmage. Now they're going to hold a spring event that you can go to, and you don't have to be a member of their collective, which is essentially what the volunteer club Spire Sports is. But to see a true scrimmage, pads on pads, and you either know what football is and it's pads on pads, or you don't, and you think it's just 7-on-7 guys running around. To see that, you have to be basically a donor to the NIL collective. Are you cool with that?
Historically, traditionally,
go right ahead. Guy, I would, but I will tell you, I feel strongly about this. Go ahead. It bugs me.
I traditionally, historically, would have had a problem with it. I don't mind it as much because as a media guy, I learned nothing from the spring game. Now, if you think about it from the fans' perspective, yeah, I'm with you. I have a problem with it. You should at least hold at least an open practice or something, some sort of event where the like kids and everybody can go meet the players, right? And things like that. Some sort of
that's
like
stuff happening already.
Yeah. Yeah. So traditionally, the reason I don't have as much of a problem with it, guys, is I covered Josh Heupel's first spring game in 2021. I covered the one last year. He did not want to do the one last year. He found a way out from doing it in 2022. Guys, Josh Heupel shows you nothing in the spring game. He goes out of his way to give you nothing in the spring game. It's the most annoying thing as a media guy, but I can't blame him. This Danny White, like the way Danny White runs the athletic department, even with the Lady Vols coaching shirts, he keeps everything close to the vest, and it makes it miserable for people like me and you, Dave, trying to cover them.
Yep. Travis says it's gouging. Travis says it's gouging and it's despicable. Yeah, and I've got a problem with them not having it was called the Fan Day, and you could go through, and other than it got to the point where maybe Casey Clausen had become like a really household name in Knoxville, or like whatever quarterback, the Angels of the world, you could usually get an autograph from every single person. Maybe you just wouldn't be able to logistically do that anymore, but there just needs to be more engagement with the fans. And I worry how these guys are going to be perceived 5 years from now, especially the guys that are making good NIL money, which I don't begrudge them of. But are you at an event because you want to be a part of that event and support it? Or are you at an event because you're getting paid to be there? Quality Tire Pro, the Eberle family has been serving Chattanooga community since 1957. All major brands of tires, full service automotive, brake alignments, oil changes, and more. All work is covered by a nationwide warranty. Cherokee Blvd or online at qualitytirepros.com. Go in there and say, hey, Bo. Go in there and say, hey, Bo, Quality Tire Pros right there on Cherokee downtown. You don't want to be perceived as grabbing money all the time, Caleb.
No, but I wonder how this affects players psychologically, because I will say this. Particularly over the last 10, 15 years, I do think, and I can't speak on the Fulmer years as much. I know some players from then, but Dave, maybe it'll create a greater appreciation for the university that they were getting paid, because there's probably a lot of players who went to Tennessee because they wanted to go to the NFL. They didn't make it in the NFL. They were promised this, free 4-year degree, but they have some level of resentment because they didn't get paid anything when they were there, and their degree is kind of useless. And so they feel like they were mistreated. If things don't work out for you now and you finish at Tennessee, you can't really feel like you were mistreated in a lot of ways. I mean, now there's exceptions. Look, let's be honest. We got him on the show. I tout him. I'll tout him in a good way. Fred White didn't get paid. Not only that, Fred White had to make a sacrifice to his body that probably hurt his NFL career for the sake of Tennessee's football team during that time. Because had he stayed at cornerback, he probably would have been an NFL cornerback. And moved to safety for the sake of the team. And he wasn't getting any money. And you notice he loves the university still to this day and is a huge fan. I don't know how many people are of his character, though. And so I wonder how many.
Money is going to reveal a lot of character or lack thereof. Travis says spring games are a media field day 100% for the fans. It's only one day. Do it for the state of Tennessee. I'm completely with you, Travis. I think this is something you should try to do some sort of workaround, or you should have a fan day outside the stadium. I know construction is why it's just 10,000 seats, but why even charge for that? I mean, if a boys and girls club wants to go over, I mean, it's just $10,000. So what? $10 a ticket. That's $100,000. I mean, that's nothing for them.
We are entering a.
Go ahead.
We are entering a Moneyball era of college athletics because of NIL.
Right.
I mean, that's the truth of the matter.
But I think you would agree with me that philosophically, if a boys and girls club wants to go over there and start waiting at 5 a.m., they should be allowed to get in, correct?
Yes, there should at least be I agree with you on that. Well, there should at least be a fan day. This doesn't, you know what outrages me more, Dave? What's outraged me more than this was, you remember a few years ago where, I'm not trying to pile on him, but when Philip Fulmer was athletic director and he and Jeremy Pruitt nixed the Big Orange Caravan, and they said in place of it, we'll have Smokey and the cheerleaders go from place to place, and you guys can take pictures with the cheerleaders.
Horrible. Me Drinker says they would make enough money at the spring game from concession sales to pay the light bill. They absolutely would. Yeah, I don't understand why you have to pay for a ticket. And I know that it's not going to get much better. They're charging for tickets this year. You don't think they're going to charge for them next year with more seats? I guarantee you they will.
Oh, they will. I'm telling you, that's why there was a fight between Danny White and Josh Heupel. I'm willing to bet. I bet Josh Heupel tried to really stall construction to have no spring game period. And I bet Danny White was like, look, we got to have some sort of revenue here. We got to do a spring game.
Stall construction? What is he throwing himself in front of some sort of dump truck or something? Is this electric boogaloo?
You don't think the coaches are involved in some level in the infrastructure of the stadium?
No.
I mean, Steve Spurrier was the one who made
Derek Dooley did have the weight room moved. And it cost him like $5 million just to have it.
Is that the one is that where he put the opportunity is nowhere?
That was a different room. That was the law.
And he was like into architecture. That's the funny part. But Nealon, by the way, most of this, Dave. Robert Nealon was an engineer. Most of the design of Neyland Stadium through the 90s were drawings that Robert Nealon himself drew up. All the way through the 90s.
Why do you think I knew that? I did not know that until you just said that.
Yeah, Robert Nealon actually drew up all the designs for the stadium until the expansion of the North End Zone in 96. From his retirement in 52 all the way to 96, every design of the stadium was something Nealon himself had drawn up. Steve Spurrier, you probably know this, made the decision. It was his call to take the turf off the swamp at Florida Field.
So is NIL better or worse for fan interaction?
Worse. Not even close. It's worse.
Okay, let me play the other side of that. Brought to you by Apex Apparel Group Design. Apex Apparel, full-on brand supply company. Call Tyler, 15% off your first order. Tyler, 865-919-3001, just down below. With your apparel, your promotional products, they give you unparalleled customer service. All right, so state what your opinion just before I did that right there and told the fine people about Apex.
So I think that NIL makes things worse because it allows players to basically shop their interaction with fans and their bandwidth. Okay. And I don't know if that's a good idea. And also it's going to make a lot of other things that used to be free, a lot of different events used to be free, cost more money because the athletic directors are going to need that money now because they need the boosters to save their money to buy players in the recruiting trail.
Okay, but I've seen a lot of people, Caleb, show up to events that our fine sponsors place like Sports Treasures. Those guys are there, and yes, you have to pay $10 or $20 a ticket, but they wouldn't be there if not for that. The idea wouldn't have even been hatched, and I'm glad they are because I think Brew McCoy got to meet a lot of fans, and you saw why he's such a fantastic individual as a person. Dylan Sampson was there. So aside from the fan day, I think just being completely dead, I don't know why the University of Tennessee can't bring that back, but I actually think it helps with a little more interaction. But you need the fan day. Let's do the fan day, right?
I mean, yes, I'm a fan of the fan day. I think the players owe that much. At least one day where just for free you can come meet Vinny fans that want to show up and and have interactions. I think it's just worth it for the promo. I will say Tennessee, if there's a school that doesn't need it, it's Tennessee. I mean, Tennessee could hire. They could go back to the single wing that Neyland himself ran and just go try to win games 3-0 and 7-0. And their coach say, I don't like any of you guys. I'm not letting anybody show up for anything. And I hate all fans. And they'd still sell out every week if they were winning.
As long as they're winning, you're absolutely right. It would be nice. And I think Philip Fulmer would attest to this. It would be nice to have a little bit of equity in the hard times, though. And you can build equity with your fan days and those sorts of things. And you can't do it after the fact. So if you lay a 6-6 egg, you can't start doing these fan day things because people then will see through it, right?
Yes. You mean like the type of equity that Joe Paterno had built to where he was horrible at Penn State for years and they kept him around because he knew how to build equity with the fans.
Yeah. I mean, good for Joe Pa. I mean, I know a lot of that story is gross and we don't want to talk about it, but he had built up that equity. He had a decade of coaching before we even knew how crazy it was behind the scenes that he wasn't a good coach. Portions of the program brought to you by our good friend Don Self. Customer service still matters. He's your State Farm agent in the Chattanooga area. If he's not in your specific area, he'll direct you the right way. To go to donself.net, donself.net, or call 423-396-2126, 423-396-2126. Right below. Call him. Don will take care of you. Everybody wants to save money, but the bottom line is when you make that claim, customer service still matters. So I think when we talk about Tennessee being a money grab game in the spring, I don't know that you're going to see much change about that. And I don't know. I just wish they had one day. Out of 365, I wish you had one day to sit around for 6-8 hours because I've gotten to know some of these guys like Cooper Mays and Jacob Moore, and I think you'd be impressed by meeting them. They are now Jacob's obviously gone, and I mean that rhetorically, but there are a lot of good guys, a lot of hard workers on this team that you'd be okay with dating your daughter, or you'd be okay with being best friends with your son. I just think that's a shame that connection's not made, and I'll get off my soapbox, Caleb.
No, I mean that's why even before NIL, players who basically they gave this university free labor, they still are in love with the university because of the love they got back while they were at the school. So I totally understand that, and that's why you don't feel the same. You don't see the same from certain players from certain eras. I mean, I just see a mention of it, but you talk about building up equity. That was a big mistake of Derek Dooley's because he wasn't winning. And if you're not winning, Derek Dooley was a total you-know-what to the media, wasn't he? And and that doesn't help you when you're not winning.
Well, he was just distant. He was just like, talk to me. I was like, can I have your cell phone number? And he was like, no. Yeah, okay.
And he built up.
That's not how it works. If I want to cover your team, I need to have your cell phone number. I mean, that's how you just didn't get that part of it.
And he also didn't get that you need to build up equity with former players. You'd like a few people in your corner if you're trying to get some help keeping your job. I don't think any former player was sad to see him go when he was fired. And that was a problem.
I agree.